Hello everybody, this is Bastien. I am broadcasting for, this is for cohort 1. I see that there are no students in our tutorial venue. I take it that's because tomorrow is a public holiday. So I'm going to record some input for you so that those of you who do watch this tutorial will have an idea of how to apply a worldview mapping tool to a reading. And the reading that I chose for today was the one on Islam by Burnett, which I'd all hope that you'd have with you. So if you are watching this and you're not actually in the tutorial or sitting at home and doing this on your home computers or tablets, then what we're going to do is that we are, oh dear, I see we're not on air yet, so I'm just waiting for it to load up. Welcome everybody to this tutorial, especially to cohort 1, whom I see there are none of you here today. So I'm going to give the input that is scheduled for today's tutorial. It was going to be an interactive one, and we were going to look at a worldview map tool, and we were going to use that to apply to a reading, for example, the Burnett one, which is on Islam. The Islamic Worldview from the book The Clash of Worlds, which the chapter is in the resources tab on Funda for this course. So I'm going to go to our PowerPoint, which is also going to be put onto Funda so that you've got a chance to go and see what that's all about. I'm just going to get the PowerPoint up. Good. So here we have what we're working on today, and that is particularly the elements of a worldview map. Now, first of all, one of the first things you need to do when you tackle any reading in worldviews and particularly critical thinking is that you have to have some input to know what makes us a worldview. So taking it from Sire, which is the reading that we have been using, we look at issues of what is the prime reality in this religion, the external reality, what does this worldview or religion have to say about death, about what constitutes a human being, how do you know right from wrong in this worldview, what about history, how does it see history, is it linear, is it cyclical, how do we know what we know? So that's the first thing that you would have to look at when you are doing a map. The second thing is that you would also need to know, where does this worldview that I'm looking at fit in? Is it an orthodox worldview? Is it a cultic worldview, a conservative one, or a fundamentalist one, or a liberal one? Where does it fit in on that continuum? You've also got to know, what do the people in this worldview believe? What are the doctrines? Can we find them in how they act? Can we find them in what they write? Can we find it in what they do? Where is this to be found? We've also got to look at the worldview's sacred texts, stories, myths, and legends. Sometimes the stories, particularly in contemporary worldviews, are really seen in for example, interviews. You might find evidence of this, for example, on YouTube, where people chat about what they believe and stories about why they believe and why they hold a particular worldview. And these are sometimes very useful because they're personal. Rituals. You will need to know, are there any particular dates or days or anything that is actually meant to make that special thing, that worldview that it is. For example, an Islamic worldview holds that all Muslims must try and make a Hajj to go to the Holy Land of Mecca, or that they fast during the month of Ramadan. So that would be a particular ritual. Praying 5 times a day or night is also a ritual. So you would have to know what are the rituals in the particular tradition that you are finding. What does daily life look like for people in the particular worldview that you are studying? You would need to have a look at that as well. Then you would need to have some kind of filter, looking at the shifts and the changes in the world context around us. This is because culture is changing all the time, and therefore what we need to do is to be able to say that we understand this worldview in terms of the shifts and the changes in the world context. For example, world wars might affect how churches respond and believe. A genocide or Holocaust may affect different strands of Judaic thought. So I think it's very important to know that these are the elements that you need to look at when you are looking at a worldview. But now, these are just a collection of words. How does one make it a bit more exciting? Let me see if we can do that. Well, what I've done is, from another class that I take, I have taken one of the maps, the worldview maps that they have created. It is behind me here. See, you can see it. This one is a modern Judaism map. I hope that if you can see it, you should be able to read it. It should be okay. So, for example, here they've said they wanted to look at modern Judaism, but they wanted to see what Orthodox Judaism looked like. So they took Saya's 7 points. So you had prime reality, external reality, human history, right and wrong, death, human being. Here you have a shofar. I don't know if you can see it from up there. There's another shofar. And then they also had the Star of David, which you can't exactly see on here. And then underneath Saya's points, they had filled in the bit of information they had, which showed them how to find what the external reality was. So that external reality or prime reality is Saya's category, but what is below that is what it means. So, for example, there are 2 parts to the prime reality. There is a written part, a spoken part, and what does it mean in Orthodox Judaism? So there are written and spoken parts in that. So what I want you to know from looking at a map like this is that what we were going to do today was to try and get you to do your own map using the Clash of Worlds, here we go, Clash of Worlds article. And what I thought was really useful, so you can do one that just fits onto an A4 page. So what I want to show you is that what you need to do is to actually get all these elements down on one space. And this will facilitate you learning an enormous amount about how things fit together. So, for example, you would need to be able to say and fill in what is the prime reality, what is the external reality, what happens at death in Islam. And then you would have to go to the reading, and you would have to try and highlight all the elements. I've highlighted some of the elements here. Muhammad and the message, the Islamic worldview. So I've had a look, for example, at the similarities between Judaism here and Islam, because they are called the Abrahamic faiths. The idea is to actually have fun. By this I mean that there's some very simple and interesting information about Islam in the article. So, for example, the cosmos is explained, the self, and so on. And I thought it would be exciting for you to make a map. A map can be anything. As you've seen, the people in this class did a circle to start with, and then they had points going off the circle. My maps usually look a little bit different to that, but there's no right or wrong. So I'm going to show you and encourage you to do a map of your own. So here we have a map of a worldview, okay? That's what I've called it, but this is just to show you. So you might say, this is the world. Okay? Now, there might be different points on this world. So prime reality might be there, and Saya's 7 points, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, might fit there. But now, this is only half the rainbow. Okay, let's pretend this is a double rainbow going under the earth and over it. Now, what about belief? What about doctrine? Okay, and what about daily life? Because you see, these things here are very big concepts. These are just concepts about how a religion works, what Saya says, or a worldview. It can be a religion or a worldview. But this is where culture is lived out, okay, daily life. And then there are also rituals. And then there are also myths and legends and stories. And these also tell us things about the worldview that we are looking at. Then we have filters. So you might have split-offs of new kind of Islamic movements. For example, Chrislam. Chrislam is a putting together of Christianity and Islam. And that's a new form of Islam that we are experiencing today. You've got Orthodox. You need to be able to say, what are the different kinds of Islam we have? Maybe here, on the Orthodox, we have Al-Qaeda. Okay, I hope we're back. Okay, everyone, so we're still busy here looking at an Islamic worldview. So I was saying that on the one side, you've got a very conservative worldview, and on the other side, you might find a very liberal worldview. So when you make a map like this, what you are doing is that you are making visual what you know or what you've read. And so the importance of this is to try and take this reading, this Clash of Worlds on Islam, and try to actually take the elements out and write them up into your map. Now, as nobody is really seemingly available to make this an interactive tutorial, which is what we were hoping to do, it would be very nice if some of you managed to do this and actually email it to me as a scan or as a drawing that you've done using whatever equipment is useful, and then you could put it onto a message and message me on Funda, and then that way we can try and find out how you have interpreted the different elements of the worldview map according to your reading of the Burnett article on Islam. So let's just go back to the elements. So here we go. We've got these elements of the worldview map, and what we're going to do is that we are going to look at all these elements, and I'm asking you to make a map, which is going to make it very exciting to see how you've interpreted the Islamic worldview visually on a piece of paper. The other thing that I want to draw your attention to, which we haven't discussed before, is how to see, let's just see if we can, here we go, how to treat the lack of Islamic myth and legend you might find that you find it difficult to find stories about Islam or legends or myths or mythology, and that's because Islam is a very monotheistic worldview, and it doesn't allow for mythological embellishment, and only reluctantly were the scriptural revelations of the Quran elaborated by commentators and popular preachers. So while this was happening in the first 3 centuries, there were a lot of things that were absorbed into Islam and given partial sanction by theologians. But at the same time, there were a lot of legends that were woven around theologians, at least the Prophet Muhammad and the members of his family. And though inconsistent with the historical reality, these legends have formed for many people the main sources of inspiration about famous figures from the past. So the qusas, or the storytellers, made the Quranic revelation much more understandable to the masses by filling in the short texts with detailed descriptions that were not found in scripture. And though the mystics tried to maintain the purity of the divine word, they also attempted a spiritualization of both the Quran and the popular legends. So that was the way of giving the Quranic words a deeper meaning. Okay, so what we are saying here is that you need to know that you will not easily find Islamic myth and legend. You might find stories, you might find stories about Muhammad, you might find many stories about peripheral things, but you're not going to find big legends and parables about the Quran itself. The Quran itself is seen as being that in its entirety. So I'm going to be posting up this PowerPoint onto Funda so that you've got access to these ideas and these quotes. I've shown you some of the maps, and I encourage you all to make a worldview map for any of the worldviews that you are studying. In the coming week or so, I'm going to be asking you to do some reading, some applied work in terms of critical thinking skills, and I'm hoping that you are going to be able to get onto the forum and have a look at our forum postings, particularly the Nando's adverts. I know that some of you have been struggling to find them, but I will email you about that too if you're stuck. So thank you for watching this or for taking this in, if you were able to do so today. And until the next tutorial, I hope that you have a very good holiday and that you have a good voting day. I will see you on Funda. Thanks so much and goodbye.